I just want to introduce myself. My name's Ekene Balogun, and I'm a clinical counsellor, and I've been doing work with newcomers and people, vulnerable people, I would say, for over 25 years. And so I feel like I've got a lot of experience around compassion fatigue, which I just wanted to share with you guys today. I question myself to say, why am I doing this? And the reason why I'm doing this is because I feel like my mission is to help us professionals be the best version of ourselves. And when we're the best version of ourselves, and that's when we can really impact and inspire others, especially clients that we work with. When we talk about compassion fatigue, the truth is we can only give what we have, right? People say, how full is your cup? I hear that a lot. And it's like, am I half empty, half full? But really, the truth is, as professionals, I don't want to be half empty or just even full. I want to be running over. Because when I'm running over, that's when the running over bit impacts people. I don't know if you've ever been in a place where someone just walks in and you're like, wow, you know, what's happened to you? You see them glowing. They may not have said anything, but you can actually see it. You can feel the difference. And it's the same thing that when they're not feeling so good, you can notice when someone's feeling down, because it all starts with inside and it oozes out. And so it's really important to know that, especially as professionals, that no matter how much we try and fake it, and we do a lot of the time because we're professionals and we have to keep it all together, the truth is we are human first, okay? And then we do run into these things. So I guess the first question is, what is compassion fatigue? And a lot of people talk about it. I don't think I really knew what it was until it hit me. I work with young people, vulnerable young people, in fact, young people who were marginalized, immigrant youth that came into Canada that were involved in gang and criminal activity. So there was a lot of work around their vulnerability and trying to get them to succeed and settle in Canada. But the main thing was that they were involved in gang and criminal activities, and the issue with that is that it was very high risk youth. And so back in 2016, I think I experienced my first death of a youth through homicide. And that really impacted me because he was one that I worked with. I actually saw him 2 days before he died. I actually was trying to help him get a home. He was kicked out. Well, he wasn't kicked out of his home. He actually chose to leave, and which resulted him going to an unsafe place and being shot, unfortunately. That impacted me big time. Like, that was the first youth I've ever had that died on me. And again, even the language I'm using, died on me, is almost like I felt like I could have prevented it. And I'm going to go into that after, but the truth is we carry a lot of burdens with us when things like this happen. And I think there was a time in 2019, we had 4 youth die in a matter of 4 to 6 weeks, like one after each other. And that is when it really had the biggest impact on me. I actually thought all of them died around the same time, but that's how much it triggered the memory of Ezzy, and it came back and it really impacted me to a point where I went up to my manager and I was questioning if I wanted to still be in the same field, if I wanted to work there. And that was very real to me because, I carried all the guilt. Is there something I could have done? Is there something we could have changed? But realistically, like I say to even all my clients when I'm counseling them, is I can give you all the tools you want, but until you decide to use it and activate it in your life, it just becomes tools. It's not useful to you. And I had to slowly realize that I can't be all to everybody. And that's, I think, a trap that we fall into as professionals, that superhero mentality. We try and be all and everything to everybody. And we're taking on so many tasks. Like when those youth were dying, I wanted to be there for their family. You know, I even felt guilty for feeling they're sad. I was thinking about, what about their family? They must be feeling worse. You know, I'm trying to still be professional and keep it together at work, when really inside I was hurting, I was sad, I was tired. I just wanted to cry sometimes, but no, we fall into that trap and then feel like we can keep that same performance with all tasks, which is impossible. And another thing with the superhero mentality, I find that with us professionals, is that we try to, it's almost like the job we signed up for is like, initially we signed up to help people. That was the main goal. That was mine anyway. But when these other things happen, like death and things like that, or when you feel like maybe I can't do this, you feel as if you're a failure. And that's the biggest problem. You know, I work with first responders that often feel that sense of judgment, like you signed up for it, you should be tough enough to go through it. But actually, we're human first. You know, the discipline around, will people judge me for not doing the work? You know, all this time I studied, you know, something must be wrong with me. And it always points back to us. And that's when we go into our self-critique, and it's just like a snowball. We need to come away from that superhero mentality, because like I keep boiling down to the same thing, we're human first, and we can only give what we have. If I'd taken that step back to just say to myself, you know what, I need some time off. It's just hit me. Like, I can't cope with it. I don't know if I can be there to support mum, because I'm just trying to process this myself. Maybe, just maybe, I could have been more helpful. We need to put aside the self-blame, and we need to see, okay, what can I do about this, right? Because I've realized whatever you value, you invest in. And when I say whatever you value, you invest in, I mean, like, if you valued a relationship, whether it be a friendship or an intimate relationship, you'll invest in that relationship. If you valued education, you'll invest in that. And so we are valuable, right? If we want to go out there and impact and inspire and help people, we need to know that we need to invest in ourselves. And I feel like a lot of us slack in that area. Do I give to myself what I will give to my best friend? Like, do I lift up myself? Do I tell myself it's okay when I'm not okay? You know, do I comfort myself in times of trouble? Those are the things that I just want you to ponder on a bit. How do I value myself? Because if I don't invest and value myself, how can I impact others? So the difference between, I think it's important to know the difference between compassion fatigue and burnout, because I think people tend to blend the two and they're really different. So compassion fatigue is almost like instant, and burnout tends to take time over a process. And I like to use visuals. For example, if you're driving a car with no gas and it's on the yellow light and it's empty, eventually your car's gonna break down and stop. Yeah, that is burnout. Burnout is usually related to work and stress and a lot of things, and over time, you know, it really hits you. It's a build-up. As for compassion fatigue, it's almost as if it's when you've been exposed to something traumatic. Someone's told you something traumatic, like I said, instantly hearing the news of a youth dying, you know, just going like that. It's almost like a car crash. You know, I've just had a car crash and my car's dented, and maybe I feel it's drivable, but internally, maybe the engine's been damaged in some sort of way. So even though I can't see it on the outside or as bad, I don't think it's as bad, it could really potentially be harmful, you know, to keep going. And so that's the two differences. Like burnout, I don't see one worse than the other. I think they're both equally as bad. However, that's the difference between burnout and compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue is almost instant. Burnout is over time. Burnout is caused by work-related things. I've told you that before. I also say that compassion fatigue is when something traumatic has just happened on the onset. Compassion fatigue is a term that's described as impacting you when you're helping others. For example, when I'm doing a lot of counseling sessions and I've heard something really traumatic or it triggers me, that is under compassion fatigue, because it's just hit me instantly and it could affect me. Whereas if I'm trying to keep things together at work and I'm getting stressed from management, let's say, and my work is not, then over time, and that could be classed as burnout. So there's a big difference between the two, and it's good to understand the two, but it's also good to understand and be aware that when these indicators are happening, that we do something about it. Also, it's important to know that burnout has a longer recovery time, yeah, because it's a build-up over time, but compassion fatigue is quicker to sort of help if you get help early. You know, and so it's about being aware of these things, and talking about awareness is really important to understand the red flags that you should see, right? Feelings of helplessness and powerlessness is really important. You know, if you're going to a place where you feel powerless and really helpless, like, why? These are questions that I ask myself. Why am I feeling this way? What's happening right now? Because to me, what I've learned is that my emotions are normal. They're natural. They're things that come up. But I always question why they're coming up instead of try to ignore them. Why am I feeling tired? What's going on with me? What's going on? Why did I react that way? So things like that, try and question yourself more, have those red flags when they come up. So when you have reduced feeling of empathy and sensitivity, that is a real red flag, Sometimes we find ourselves becoming numb. The clients are just another number, just another client, regardless of what you hear. And when you find yourself in that zone, I remember when I was working with the Metropolitan Police and even the helplines in the UK, they tried to sensitize us by always sending out news about what was going on around child abuse, because they wanted us to be on top of why we're here in the first place. Because you eventually find that you do get numb. If you're in the forefront as a police officer all the time dealing with the same stuff, honestly, the truth is, if we're honestly speaking, you do get numb to the situation. They're just another person, criminal, doing the wrong thing. And so we really need to be aware of ourselves. When you feel overwhelmed and exhausted, that's another red flag. Why am I exhausted? Why am I feeling overwhelmed? What's going on? And I think we don't try and do those things. We just try and chug on. And which is, again, it's going back to self. What do I value for myself? If my friend was to tell me she was feeling overwhelmed and frustrated and stressed, what would I say to her? And it's the same thing. What do I tell myself in those situations? When you lose interest in activities or things that make you happy, that's another red sign, a red flag. What's going on with me? Difficulties concentrating and making decisions, sleeping difficulties, things like that. All these are signs that something's going on that you need to know. I'm feeling frustrated, and I feel like frustration sometimes can be seen as a bad thing. But to me, frustration can be your friend, because it's until that point of frustration, then that's when elevation happens, change happens, right? Because when you're put in a corner or you're so frustrated with, say, work or with things going on, I think that's when people tend to make steps, But you just need to make sure those steps are in the right direction. How do I alleviate this? What is going on? And so I think one thing we tend to do as professionals, especially in our field, is we try and deal with it all on our own. I'm a counselor, I should have all the tools. I shouldn't need counseling. Like, that is such a myth and such a lie. Remember, you're human first. So whenever you need support, reach out to somebody. Reach out for help. A colleague, management, friends, family. Like, there's so many people that we need to extend our arms to and say, listen, I can't. I'm tired. I'm depressed. I'm neglecting myself. Where is self-care coming in? Do we? That's another subject on its own. Like, self-care to me should be mandatory. Like, mandatory for all professionals, self-care. If you don't practice self-care, again, that's another red flag. Why? What I value is what I invest in. Am I investing in myself? If I'm not investing in myself, then how can I impact everybody else? How? Like, for me, I've made a decision in my life that I don't want to be, like, I can educate people, right? And you just acquire the knowledge. I can go out there and talk to people and they feel motivated. I could be a motivational speaker, and that's great. Like, it affects you in that moment and maybe for a while, but if you don't find the motivation in yourself, it soon dies. I made a decision that when I go out and talk to people, I want to inspire people. Because I think with inspiring, when I get inspired, it's something I want to do. I want to act on it. And so when you go out there, it's a matter of, how do I view myself when I go out? It's really important that we find out tools and ways to move forward, because that's a question I always get asked when I'm in front of clients. It's like, how do I do this? So how? And some of the tips that I can give you, number one is be aware. Awareness of your feelings, your sensations, everything is really important. Because until you're aware of a situation, how can change come about? If you don't know these things that happen, how would you know? So it's the awareness part that brings around the opportunity for change, right? So be aware of when you notice things happening in your inside, like how I'm feeling. I'm not feeling so great today. I'm feeling down. Just be aware of those things. With no judgment. Like, oh no, I shouldn't be down. Pull yourself together. No judgment. But just being aware as to notice it and say, okay, what's going on? develop good coping strategies. And I'm talking about ways to focus on, in those moments when I am in those spaces, like when I've just heard something traumatic, what do I do in those moments? Like, do I need to take time out? Sometimes time out is not bad. Do I learn how to cope? How do I cope with this? How do I cope with this information? Do I need to take some minutes to breathe? Do I need to ground myself? Do I need to talk to somebody? These are, when I say coping strategies in the moment, they're almost like a bandage approach. If I started bleeding and I just needed to hold it together for that minute, those are the things that you use. There's so many tools that you can use in the moment. But going back to the root of the cause is, how come I got triggered? How come I'm feeling so? That is the main key. It brings about that awareness, right? Why am I feeling this way? You are feeling out of control or overwhelmed in the moment. What do I do? It's really important, especially in our field, is that we don't know it all. And that's okay. I find that a lot of our struggle is to say that I don't know, or I don't know how to cope, or I don't even know if I want to cope with it. And that's okay too. And I feel like we need to understand the two. I find that a lot of the time when we're dealing with our emotions are like if we went camping and we set up a fire, right? I can set up a fire, and if we don't throw any logs in it or do anything with the fire, what happens to the fire? Eventually it will subside and it will burn out. That's our emotions. So sometimes we can feel really intense in the moment, but sometimes if we need to just take that time out and leave it and just don't add anything to it, just see how we go, take a walk, whatever it is, it will subside. But the thing what we tend to do is when we have that fire, the intensity of our emotion, we tend to throw logs in it, right? Oh, you're a failure. How come you can't think of those things in the moment? You're supposed to help this client. All those logs are just further fueling that fire, and it's not. In fact, it rages and it intensifies more and it lasts longer. And so what logs are you throwing into your own fire? About yourself. What are you saying about yourself that is actually making things worse on yourself? Putting more pressure, immense pressure on yourself as a professional. That's the question I'm going to leave you with. What are you throwing in? What logs are you throwing in? I said it earlier, self-care routine is so important. I would urge all professionals and even management, if you can, make it mandatory practice that self-care is number one. Because if I don't care about myself or take care about myself, how in the world would I take care of others? Okay? You could only give what you have. And if I'm running on empty, that's all I'm giving. I don't know how impactful I'll be then. It'll just be another job every day. It'll just be another client. And I know we all didn't sign up for that. So really important self-care is mandatory. Am I eating well? Am I sleeping well? All those little things. Am I taking time out to have a laugh? Am I practicing all these things? Reaching out for support is number one. Please, please, please. Never think you're alone in anything you do. Always know that there's support out there. Even if you may not be able to go to colleagues or management, friends, family, there's always support, free even counseling services that you can get to just talk about it. EFAP, all those ones that organization have. Please, please, please know that you should talk about how you're feeling. And set time aside to do something meaningful, even if it's every night, talking about things that you're grateful for, even if it's just sitting down having a hot chocolate and watching a good Netflix movie, comedy, whatever makes you laugh and it feels good, or just spending time with the family. Really set time for that. Switch off, especially now when we're all working from home due to COVID. Sometimes we blend the two, and that's really, really, really bad. We tend to work harder at home. I don't know about how it feels that way. And so we tend to put things aside or go and check that last email, and there must be a cut-off time. And do something meaningful that's totally off work. And last thing I'm going to leave you with is really invest in yourself. You have to. If you take anything away from here, take one thing: is whatever I value, I invest in. Whatever I treasure, I make time for. And so you need to treasure and value yourself first in order to ooze out, overflow, and help others. So that's the tools that I will encourage people to use. If you need more support in that, obviously we can go further into discussion around how and what ways it works for different people. But for me, the basic tools, if you just get that awareness and start to put things in place, start to practice these things, you're going to see a real difference, you know, in the work you do and how you feel about yourself, you know. It's not easy work that we all do, we've signed up for, but however, it's enjoyable. It really makes a difference when you really impact someone's life. It's a feel-good, it really is. And so that feel-good is something that, you know, you don't want to, you want to continue on. You don't want to come to a point where you are, like, not happy with where you're at right now. So I just wanted to share that with you because I think it's really important, especially in the time we're in. To identify and notice that mental health is number one on the increase, but then also that the importance of taking care of ourselves and each other in these moments. So practice, and just love yourself, take care of yourself and value yourself.